When you find her, she will not be afraid of the sky. Words like these are almost never written down. They are spoken once in a quiet room from an old woman to a young boy, and then they are carried silently for the rest of a life. Somewhere among the things Elon Musk owns, and he owns more than almost any man alive, there may be one small thing he has never been able to give away. Not a car, not a share of stock. A ring. A simple, old ring that once belonged to his grandmother. He has been married more than once. He has stood at altars, spoken vows, exchanged rings chosen from glass cases in bright stores. But this ring, the one with the history, the one with the fingerprints of a braver generation still on it, has never been placed on anyone's hand. And to feel why that matters, this story does not begin with Elon at all. It begins decades before he was born, in the freezing prairie wind of Saskatchewan, Canada, with a woman the world has nearly forgotten, and a marriage so fearless it makes his rockets look almost ordinary. Her name was Winnifred. Everyone called her Winna. She married a man named Joshua Haldeman, a chiropractor from the Canadian prairies with restless eyes and a dangerous idea of what a family could be. In an age when most couples measured adventure by a Sunday drive, Joshua and Winna bought a small single-engine airplane and taught themselves to live in the sky. In 1950, they did something their neighbors thought was madness. They packed up their 4 children, left Canada behind, and moved across the world to Pretoria, South Africa, chasing open land and open air. But the flights were only beginning. In the years that followed, Joshua and Winna flew that little plane up and down the continent of Africa. And in 1954, they did something almost no private couple on Earth had ever done. They flew from South Africa all the way to Australia and back, roughly 30,000 miles in a fragile machine, over oceans that had swallowed far bigger aircraft. Joshua flew, Winna navigated. A wife with maps spread across her knees, guiding her husband across the emptiest water on the planet. Look closely at the old photographs from those journeys, and you will see her hands, steady hands, working hands. And somewhere on those hands, the story goes, a simple ring, the one she wore across every ocean she ever crossed. That ring survived storms, deserts, and open sea. What it could not survive, no one could have predicted. In 1974, Joshua Haldeman's luck in the sky finally ran out. His plane went down, and the man who had crossed oceans was gone in an instant. Winna was left a widow in a country far from where she was born. Elon was barely more than a baby when it happened. He would grow up with no real memory of his grandfather, only the legend and the woman the legend left behind. And that woman would matter more than almost anyone realizes, because a few years later, in 1979, Elon's own home broke apart. His parents divorced, and the quiet, bookish boy entered the loneliest chapter of his childhood. At school in Pretoria, he was small for his age, awkward, easy to hurt. Other boys made him a target. Books became his hiding place because the real world had teeth. But there was one door in Pretoria that always opened gently for him, his grandmother's. In her home, the lonely boy was not strange. He was interesting. Winna would bring out her slide projector, and on the wall of an ordinary living room, the impossible would appear. The little plane on a dirt airstrip, the endless African bush, the ocean from above, with no land in sight in any direction. A boy nobody chose at school, sitting in the dark, watching proof that people from his own blood had done things the world called impossible. We can only imagine what that felt like, but we know what it became. It is in rooms like that one where family promises are made, the kind that never reach a biography. No interview records it, no book lists it. But anyone who has ever had a grandmother knows how a moment like this goes, and so we tell it gently, as it may have happened. Perhaps it was an ordinary afternoon. Perhaps the slides had just ended, and the wall had gone white again. And perhaps Weena opened her hand, and in her palm lay the small ring that had crossed the world with her. "This is not worth much money," she may have told him, "but it has been over 2 oceans. It has been through storms your grandfather and I never spoke about afterward." And then, perhaps, the sentence a boy never forgets. "One day it will belong to the woman you love. When you find her, she will not be afraid of the sky." Not afraid of the sky. Not afraid of distance, of storms, of a man whose mind was always somewhere above the clouds. Some inheritances are money. Some are houses, or land, or names. But some inheritances are promise, small enough to close a hand around, heavy enough to shape a life. And this is the part of the story almost no one has ever heard. What happened to that promise when the boy grew up and the whole world started watching him? In 1989, at 17, Elon left South Africa with little more than a suitcase and his mother's blessing. He was heading for Canada, his grandmother's country, the cold prairie land Weena had left behind 4 decades earlier. Think about that for a moment. The boy was not just chasing a future, he was retracing her past. Landing in the country she came from, carrying the family's old hunger for the horizon. The years that followed are the years the world knows. The struggling student, the young founder sleeping in his office, Zip2, PayPal, the first millions, then the first hundreds of millions. The quiet boy from Pretoria becoming a name people argued about at dinner tables on every continent. Weena lived long enough to see it begin. She had watched him in her living room as a lonely child, and she lived to watch the world discover what she had seen first. But here is what the cameras never asked. In all those years of interviews about rockets and money and the future of the human race, what happened to the ring? Because in the year 2000, Elon Musk stood at a wedding altar for the first time. He married Justine Wilson, the writer he had pursued since university, the first great love of his life. If ever there was a moment for a grandmother's ring to come out of its drawer, it was that one. It did not. Why not? No one can say for certain. He has never spoken about it, and perhaps he never will. But we can imagine the reasons a man gives himself. Perhaps it felt too soon. Perhaps, standing at that altar at 29, some quiet voice told him the promise was not yet ready to be kept. Perhaps he simply could not part with the one object that still connected him to a woman who had loved him before the world did. Or perhaps, and this is the harder thought, some part of him already knew. Because the marriage to Justine, for all its real love, became a marriage under siege. The companies devoured him. The ambition that his grandmother's stories had lit in him as a boy now burned through his family's evenings, weekends, years. Justine would later write, openly and painfully, about feeling less like a partner and more like a passenger in a life moving too fast to hold. They knew unbearable grief together, the loss of their first baby, a wound this channel has spoken of before with care and will not reopen here. By 2008, while the world watched his rockets fail and his car company gasp for survival, the marriage failed too. The divorce was public. The pain was not. Through all of it, the wedding, the storms, the ending, the old ring stayed where it was. It had outlasted oceans. Now it had outlasted a marriage. Then came Tallulah. He met her in 2008, in the darkest financial weeks of his life, when the smart money said he was finished. She was young, English, gentle, and she chose him at the exact moment the world was walking away. He married her in 2010. It did not last, and they divorced. And then, in one of the strangest, most human chapters of his story, he married the same woman again in 2013. 2 weddings, the same bride, as if he were trying to prove that love, like a rocket, deserves a second launch after a failure. It failed again. By 2016, it was finally over. 1 long marriage to Justine, 2 more to Tallulah. 3 altars, 3 sets of vows, and 3 endings. And still, the story goes, 1 drawer in his life stayed closed. Whatever ring Tallulah wore, it was not his grandmother's. Whatever promises he made at those altars, 1 older promise stayed unkept, folded away in the dark like a letter with no address. A pattern like that stops being a coincidence. It starts being an answer. The ring was never for the marriages he had. Perhaps it was always for the marriage he was still waiting for, the one he could not seem to find, no matter what he built, no matter what he became. And then one night in 2017, for the first time in his life, he almost said it out loud. That year, a journalist from Rolling Stone sat with him for hours, expecting to talk about factories and Mars. Instead, at one point, the richest conversation turned poor and human. Elon had just been through another heartbreak, and he did not hide it. He spoke about how hard it was, and then he said something that stunned people who thought they knew him. He said that without a long-term partner, without love, he could not be truly happy. That all of it, the rockets, the factories, the future itself, could not fill that seat beside him. He even admitted the thing powerful men almost never admit, that he did not want to go to sleep alone. The world laughed a little, the way it does when a billionaire says he is lonely. But the older ones among us did not laugh. We recognized it. Because we have all known someone like that. A man who can fix anything except the silence in his own house. A man who is needed by thousands and held by no one. The lonely boy from the slide projector living room had become the most famous builder on earth, and he was still, in the way that matters most, exactly where he started, waiting. And somewhere, if the family story is true, so was the ring, not afraid of the sky. Maybe that is what the search has always been about. Not beauty, not brilliance, not someone impressed by rockets, and the world is full of those, but someone who would not flinch at the storms that come with him, the obsession, the absences, the nights when his mind is somewhere above the clouds and cannot come down. Winnifred Haldeman knew what that kind of love looked like because she had lived it. She did not wait on the ground while her husband flew. She got in the plane. She held the maps. She crossed the empty ocean beside him. That is the marriage the ring remembers. And perhaps that is the standard it has been waiting for all these years in the dark of its drawer. The ring has crossed 2 oceans and 3 continents, but it has never crossed the small distance from his hand to someone else's. Think about that distance, a few inches. For a man who measures his ambitions in miles to Mars, it may be the longest journey he has ever attempted, and the only one he has never completed. Machines can be redesigned after every failure. Rockets can be launched again. But this one small human flight, he has never quite gotten off the ground. So what do we make of a story like this? We do not make him a saint. He has been, by many honest accounts, including his own, a difficult man to love. Absent, consumed, married to deadlines before he was married to anyone. Some of the empty years were the price of his choices, and he knows it. But we do not make him a cartoon either. Because underneath the fortune and the noise, this may be the truest thing about him. He is a man still carrying a promise from a woman who loved him first. A man who has given the world electric cars, rockets, and impossible ambitions, and has kept back one small ring, because giving it wrongly would break something money cannot repair. His grandmother crossed oceans in a machine most people were afraid to board. Her grandson builds machines to cross the space between planets. The family gift was never money. It was the refusal to believe that the sky is a limit. And maybe, some quiet evening, a hand will open and an old ring will finally finish its journey, a few inches after 70 years. She will not be afraid of the sky. Until then, it waits. And so, in his own way, does he. If you believe some promises outlive the people who made them, subscribe to this channel. Every untold chapter of Elon Musk's legacy deserves to be told gently, and we are not finished telling them.